Hey everybody, welcome back to one of my favorite videos of the year and one of your favorite videos of the year, because when we did this last year, it proved to be one of our most popular videos. And I think for good reason, because everybody loves lures, they love new stuff, and they love stuff that works. And last year, we run into some lures that were just flat out awesome. Nothing could prepare us for the blade with no name and what it did for our season last year. Last season, it was pretty much all about this thing. The blade with no name, it just completely took us by storm. We weren't really prepared for how big of an impact a single bucktail could have on a season. Literally, when I say it was my season, it pretty well was. And I know in 2022, lots of guys had really good luck with this too. Our buddy Matt Vavrock got a blade with no name. He got his personal best on it, and we caught a bunch of fish on it this year. And it's just one of those ones that's become a staple in our tackle box. And it's just one that kind of set the stage for what a lure could do to a season. And the lures we're talking about today are very similar to this. Okay, guys, like we did with the best gear of 2022, we're going to have this list weighted from number 5 all the way down to number 1, because that way it does mean more and it's a little bit harder for us. And I'm going to be honest, number 1 and number 2 were so close here that I struggled with which way I was going to do this. And ultimately, we've done it this way only because I think it appeals to a wider variety of people. We'll get to number 1 at the end, so definitely stick around for that. But let's get started, and we're going to start where, girls?
Number 5.
All right, guys, coming in at number 5, we started our season. Our very first fish in the boat was on the Big Guy Baits Hot Dog Slapper. And we talked about it in the video where we talked about hard-bodied baits. And it was one that we haven't really used a lot in the past. But this year, Dave reached for it very first thing. And early in the season, we just had conditions where we had some really high weeds. We weren't able to get bucktails through. And we found that these, by just keeping them just subsurface, we could get these through a lot of weeds. And the two that really stuck out to us were the Hot Dog Slapper from Big Guy Baits, and the other one was the Pugsley from Spanky Baits. And Dan Motes gave us a couple at the Minnesota show last year. And my daughter caught her personal best muskie, big tiger muskie on it. We also put a couple other fish in the boat on this style of bait. And for us, it was just a style of bait that once we found where it worked for us, it really worked in that situation. Unfortunately, we haven't used it in a lot of other situations, but it was an important enough bait for us that we put it at number 5 of top baits of 2022.
Number 4.
Coming in at number 4, we have what's arguably one of my most important lures in my musky career. It's one that I gravitated to a few years ago and just went on an incredible run over the course of a summer, just stacking up so many fish on it. And it's one that, not that I don't use it all the time, because I always do go back to it, but it's one that I think sometimes I get away from it, and then it's just like old Mr. Reliable. I put it on, and this thing catches fish. And anybody that's watched me here or knows me knows what I'm talking about. It's the Lake X Toad. From the very first casting fish of 2022 on this one to the very last casting fish of 2022 on this one, the Toad was always close to my rods. It's just something that I can use so effectively in a variety of different ways. And I just love the subtle motion of that hopping of the Toad. I can count it down. You don't have to do erratic moves with the rod. It's just a real slow, controlled movement. I can do a couple different things with it. And it's just a lure that I find that I just constantly go back to. Over the course of the winter, you guys are going to see a video where I called the lure. I didn't exactly call the spot, but Dave called the spot, and we put 2 fish on 3 casts back to back to back on a Toad. And that's just the kind of lure that it is for me specifically. And I know a lot of other guys have a lot of success with it. And it's one that I just absolutely continue to go back to. And for us, it has to be Lure of the Year, number 4, the Lake X Toad.
Number 3.
Coming in at number 3, and I'm just going to be honest, from 3 to 1, we're splitting hairs here. I could have easily just lumped them all into number 1, but because we got to weight this, coming in at number 3 is one of my favorite lures. It is a Dadson Blade Bait, and it is not a blade with no name. We had tremendous success on a blade with no name. We prototyped a new style of blade with no name this year. Caught a lot of fish on this, but this isn't the one that I'm talking about today. Today, we're talking about the 10 millimeter, which is double 10 short frame, single hook. And the other one that David had all the success on is this one here, a 12-9 short frame, single hook Dadson. This one's called the Monty Python. But the key for us on the short frame single hook lures is that this year just presented itself as a different style of fishing on a lot of the lakes that we fish. Water levels were high, water temps were high, weed growth was high. We had lots of weeds, so most of our weed spots were very tough to fish because we had weeds right to the surface, and we just found that with something bigger with tandem hooks, and especially that hook hanging down at the front, we are more likely to get fouled up. So we started gravitating towards the 10 millimeter, and I talked about this in a must-have lure for fishing northwestern Ontario. That video is right here, and that was a few years ago, and I found myself going back to it, and we had a couple awesome days on the water where we're calling the spot on weed lines, casting this thing in there and dragging fish out.
So I'm just going to hit the outside edge, but I want you to just bomb in there.
You can burn this over top of the weeds. Single hook, it's real easy to get through the weeds without getting fouled. And we took it one step further. I have the Muntz weedless trebles on this one, as well as this 10 millimeter. I have the weedless hooks on here, and you guys are going to see that in accessories of the year. These hooks were amazing. Absolutely love them. So the combination of a short frame, single hook bucktail, weedless hooks, we were able to get in spots that bucktails generally can't. And for David, running this big offset over under with that huge number 12 blade, this thing just thumps. In the video, you can just see it just, you know, it's staggering through the water. Dave caught a bunch of fish on this one. So for us, number 3, it's got to be the short frame, single hook, Dadson bucktails.
Number 2.
Coming in at number 2, this was so hard for me. I could have went either way on 2 and 1. And I made my decision based on how David and I fish these two lures in the boat and how other guys fish them with me. And ask me this question tomorrow, it's probably going to go the other way. For me, this is 1A and 1B. That's how close these lures were for us. And like I say, I'm struggling with it. But coming in at number 2 on Lures of the Year is the Top Line Baits Dipstick. This thing was just lights out. Beginning of the season, we caught a huge tiger on it, and it just continued to perform all year. It's just unbelievable what this lure did for us. Whether it was the regular one, the jointed one here, and I also have an XL version, they perform. They just flat out perform. They do so much. Check out the video right here where you can kind of see a little bit more in depth on it. But for me, it was one of those ones that as soon as I got it in the water in the spring or early summer for us, I could see the potential of it. And I just kept reaching and reaching and reaching for the dipstick. And I was texting Adam all the time, another one on the dipstick, another one on the dipstick. And it just, I couldn't believe how easy it is to work, how it draws fish out, and just the quality of fish we were catching on this. And this is a color that I asked Adam to do, just a rainbow trout pattern. We don't even have rainbow trout in most of our lakes up here, but it was just lights out awesome for us. So for me, Lure of the Year number 2 has to be the Top Line Baits Dipstick.
Number 1.
Coming in at number 1, and you guys probably guessed it, anybody who's followed us this year knows how important the drop tine growler was for us. Just an absolute beast of a spinnerbait. It's so small and unassuming, but these things just flat out perform time and time again. The reason I picked this at like 1A, slightly over the dipstick, is that both David and I had amazing success with this. And David especially, we had a lot of days where Dave was just getting fish after fish on the growler when I was using a dipstick or something else, and he continued to put fish in the boat with this. I put a lot of fish in the boat. It's one that I could put in the hands of friends and customers or clients. So easy to use. It just thumps like crazy. It's just absolute, almost a perfect spinnerbait in our eyes. It does everything a spinnerbait needs to do. It's very simple. Not a lot that can go wrong with it. I love the way it's constructed. It has no fail points really built into it. It doesn't have molded lead onto the wire. So it's just super simple, super durable. It's one that we continually go back to. We use them in a variety of colors, and it's just one that works on every type of water that we go to. And we started testing what is going to become version 2.0 of it. This is a slightly bigger, heavier version. This one has some treble hooks on it. We're going to be trying this with double single hooks, but this is the future of the growler. And for us, it had to be Lure of the Year, number 1A, however you want to call it, the drop tine growler. Every year, you have a lure that just kind of stands out, and sometimes you don't go looking for it. It just kind of falls on your lap. This year for me, it was the dipstick, was that lure that just kind of fell on my lap and just flat out performed. Very similar to the hot dog slapper, the Pugsley we talked to earlier. The other lures here are ones that we had previous, and we kind of knew the potential. They just really rose to the top for us. There's already a couple things behind me that I'm looking forward to for next year that I think are going to be standouts. But again, something else is going to just kind of fall on our lap and be that one lure that is just going to take it to another level. And for us as musky anglers, that's fun. I mean, who doesn't like to try new stuff? And especially when you have success on it. That's always the cool part about musky fishing and collecting lures like we do, is that you never know what's going to work, and you have to be willing to try different things. And for me, that's fun. That's the fun side of musky fishing. Check out the video right here where we talked about the best lures of 2021, and that kind of led us up to where we were today. And until next time, 54 Bus is out of here. We'll catch you guys out on the water later.